TacTiki is a game that wasn't on my radar until suddenly one day it was. I saw a Facebook ad for this game. I saw an ad, check out TacTiki. I back Kickstarters. I'm into Kickstarters. And I saw this. And I saw Draw Lab Entertainment, which have done a few other games that looked interesting. And I looked into it. And it's a 2-player simple abstract. And so I reached out to the creator to play the game because it looked interesting. And so we played a game on Tabletop Simulator and I enjoyed it. And so I asked them for a copy to send me a copy so I can put out a review because of the fact that I enjoy TacTiki. I have since gotten the game, played it a bunch. I set up a few players to play against each other as well. And overall, the feedback for this game has been positive. It has been pretty positive about this game in terms of what this game is doing and the fun, simple elegance of the game. And to be clear, it's also a game I thought I wouldn't like. Once I got the rules, the game looked interesting. I mean, these pieces look gorgeous, but once I got the rules and started my first game, I walked in thinking this is not a game for me. And yet it is. And the reason I didn't think I would like it is because TacTiki very much has a Stratego aspect. It has pieces with numbers on the back that you'll be setting up secretly, and then slowly but surely taking turns moving. So perhaps I go 1-2, another player goes 1-2, we reveal our pieces, and see who wins the fight. And that's not a gameplay mechanic that intrigues me in the slightest. There has been one exception to date of games that are like that I still like, and that exception is Lord of the Rings Confrontation. But everything else, I'm not into guessing games, I'm not into memory games. I want a different style of board game. And yet for me, both Lord of the Rings Confrontation and TacTiki managed to be the exceptions. I don't know exactly why, but there's a few reasons. And so, to begin with, the memory aspect in this game is far less impactful than you might think, but the strategy of the bluffing involved is there. Meaning there's not a lot of memory. Once you see someone else's piece, you move on. Okay, great, that's your 2. It's not hard to remember the placement of 3 or 4 pieces on the board. It's not a significant amount of memory investment. But the game allows for a lot of opportunity, a lot of bluffing, because in this game, the 5s beat the 4s, the 4s beat the 3s, 2, 1, etc. Every number beats a lower number, but the 1 beats the 5. So no piece is perfectly protected. No piece is perfectly immune. And that allows for setups in this game where somebody is potentially about to win the game, and you win the game by getting your stack to the opposing side. You're going to build up a stack of 5 all the way on your opponent's side of the board, and that's how you win. But that allows for gameplay states where you put down a piece to block someone else's piece, because they know full well that if you did that, that must be your 5 on the board, because otherwise you can't take out my 4. But maybe I'm bluffing. And that changes everything. TacTiki is a game that is equal parts simple strategy, as well as just enough bluffing and a tiniest bit of memory to be engaging. TacTiki is a game that you can get people up and running fairly quickly. The pieces are incredibly fun and tactile. This idea of just mounting pieces on top of others and building these progressively taller stacks on the board is engaging. The art is gorgeous. Those little tiki heads are perfectly fit and perfectly suited for this game and the atmosphere and style it is bringing to the table. Like I said already, there's barely any memory in this game. If you're concerned about a memory game, this is not there. If you are concerned about a game that has hidden pieces that you don't know what's going on, you have to guess, well, that will certainly be part of this game. But that's true more in the first opening moves, in the first 5 minutes. But then after that, you're now reacting to what the board state has been created. Once that board state has been created, once you know what people's pieces are, once you know what they're trying to achieve and trying to hit towards the end, suddenly it's no longer a game about guessing, but rather a game about deducing, of trying to figure out when your opponent had to have been playing a piece a certain way to move, versus when they're bluffing and throwing you off, versus when you can initiate your own front, versus when you be defensive. This aspect, this combination on bluffing and strategy in TacTiki is incredibly engaging. And the whole thing plays very quickly too. The whole thing plays in roughly 10 minutes for a game, maybe 15, 20 if you're being super AP, super analysis paralysis, and overthinking every move and overthinking every aspect and interaction. Like I said, there's a lot here. I don't like Stratego, but I do like Lord of the Rings Confrontation, and I do like TacTiki. The win is incredibly satisfying in this game. When you finish a game of TacTiki, when you build your pillar of 5 all the way on your opponent's side of the board, their pieces are off, you have your pillar there, and you're ready to win, it feels satisfying. It feels like you challenged them and overcame it, that they sat there and tried to predict what would work and didn't, and you managed to either outbluff them or outplay them in this game. The strategy is the rule set is very, very simple. And yet a lot of complexity comes from within that rule set. That aspect of moving 2 pieces, of moving forward or sideways but not back, of being able to go on top of other pieces, of locking opponent's pieces. See, a 3 will lock a 3. So if you have the same piece on top of another piece, it will lock that piece in play. But that's only safe until someone comes along with a 4 and suddenly your piece is now gone off the board. Every turn in TacTiki involves either moving a piece or adding a piece back to the board, and your opponent has to wonder or guess which piece it was that just got added to the board. TacTiki is a game which I said already, the win in this game is satisfying, but just as importantly, the loss in this game inevitably has you saying to yourself, I screwed up 2 turns ago. I should have done that. I should have played it this way. There are a lot of satisfying moments in this game. Now, I will say, the game's not all sunshine and roses. There is a lack of variability in this game. In terms of, sure, the setup is potentially infinite. Having the different pieces and how someone places their pieces, that's potentially infinite. But the feeling this game gives isn't. The feeling is ultimately the same played out over multiple sessions. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Some of my favorite abstracts like Tak, like Yinch, like Tsar, all have that same lack of variability. It's an abstract game. There aren't powers and abilities, despite how much I might like powers and abilities. And while not a bad thing in its own right, it does mean that TacTiki will have to stand on how good the game is over time. Which brings to the longevity aspect in my collection, something I talk about in my reviews, in addition to my opinion of the game, the pros, the cons, what I like, didn't like, and all that, is whether I think this game will stay in my collection. And I think TacTiki will be here for a while, but I also don't think it'll be here forever. In general, games in this genre of interesting, simple abstracts in my collection, they end up being ultimately compared to would I rather play Tak, would I rather play Santorini. And I only have a handful of those games left. I have Tak, Santorini, Tsar, Yinch. I'd have to think what other abstract games I have. Those are my core abstract games. TacTiki is engaging enough, simple enough, clever enough, cute enough, that for right now, it's joining the ranks of those games. It is a game that I do recommend. I've had a lot of fun with. Everyone I've played it with has had a lot of fun with. But like I said, the one con, the one real aspect I do question about this game is the variability and durability over time. Will the potential strategy continue to iterate? When I play a game like Tak, that strategy continues to iterate gameplay after gameplay as I learn my opponent, as I learn how to play, as I learn how to shift my moves. TacTiki, I think the breadth of that strategy is narrower. I don't know yet, but I think it is narrower. And so over time, we'll see how this stays, but for right now, it is very much a game that I want to add to my collection. The one thing I'll note, like I said already, is in addition to the variability, if you don't like memory at all, then this might not be a game for you. There's a minimal amount of memory, but there is memory. There's a drop of, I knocked your 4 off the board, and your pieces on the sideline here are 1, 2, 3, and whatever. So there is a drop of memory in this game, and if that's a turnoff, it is what it is. This game will have that. But I will say I generally don't like memory in games, and for me in this game, it isn't a problem. TacTiki is a game that's currently on Kickstarter. I'll put a link down below. I do recommend giving it a look. It is one that pulled me in, despite the rule set being one that I thought would not work for me. Until next time, I am Alex Radical from BoardGameCo. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I do encourage you to check out TacTiki. Until next time, have a good one.